What if the story of Dracula was only the surface? And the real surprise is how easy and affordable it is to live right next to it. Imagine arriving in the heart of Transylvania with one simple idea. See if the legends match reality. In Brashov, surrounded by the Carpathian Mountains, you quickly realize this place is not just about myths. It's a city where history, daily life, and tourism blend in a very balanced way. Today, we explore this lesser-known side of Romania, starting with Brasov, a city that many travelers skip, but probably shouldn't. Brashov sits in a natural bowl of mountains, which gives it a very particular atmosphere, especially in the morning when fog covers the rooftops. The old town dates back several centuries, and walking through it feels like moving between different periods of European history. You'll find narrow streets, colorful facades, and quiet squares where locals actually live, not just tourist spots. One of the key landmarks is the Église Noire, one of the largest Gothic buildings in Eastern Europe. Inside, the scale and simplicity contrast with the busy streets outside. It's worth entering just to understand how important this region was historically. But Brashov is not only about architecture. It's also a strategic base to explore Transylvania. If you're into discovering places that are still underrated, subscribe now, because most of the upcoming videos focus exactly on these kinds of destinations. A short distance away stands the Chateau de Bran. It's widely marketed as Dracula's castle, but the reality is more nuanced. The connection with Vlad III Impaler is mostly symbolic. He may have passed through the area, but he did not actually live there. Still, the place works. The narrow staircases, hidden passages, and defensive design create a setting that naturally feeds the imagination. This is a good example of how tourism sometimes builds on a story, even if the historical link is weak. If you're interested in darker legends, you might also hear about Elizabeth Baie. However, many historians today question the scale of the accusations against her. This shows how stories in this region often mix facts with exaggeration over time. Back in Brashov, daily life is actually calm and practical. This is something rarely shown in travel videos. The city is clean, organized, and easy to navigate on foot. Food is another highlight. Traditional dishes like sarm, cabbage rolls filled with meat and rice, and malaga, a cornmeal bayside, are simple but filling. A local meal will usually cost between 8 and 15 euros, depending on the place. For those who prefer nature, Mount Tampa rises directly above the city. You can hike up in about 1 hour or take a cable car. From the top, you get a full view of Brashov and the surrounding forests. It's also a good spot to understand how isolated this region used to be. Now let's talk about something practical. How much it actually costs to stay here. An apartment in the city center usually ranges between 400 and 800 euros per month. A restaurant meal costs around 10 euros, and a coffee is about 2 euros. Short-term rentals are often significantly cheaper than in Western Europe. From a personal perspective, this is one of the main advantages of Brashov. You get a European setting with less financial pressure, which makes longer stays much more realistic, especially if you work online. Brasov itself has around 250,000 inhabitants in the city and a larger metropolitan area that goes beyond that, which makes it big enough to feel alive, but still small enough to remain walkable. It is not a chaotic capital, and that is part of its appeal. You can actually slow down here, which is rare in many European tourist cities. Climate is another interesting point. Summers are generally mild, with temperatures often around the mid-20s, while winters can be cold and snowy because of the mountain region. This creates a very different experience depending on when you visit. In winter, the city feels almost like a mountain postcard. In summer, it becomes greener, brighter, and much more active with outdoor life. One thing that surprises many visitors is how visually pleasant the city feels in everyday life. The architecture is well preserved, and the mountain backdrop create a natural frame around the entire city. There is also a certain balance between urban life and nature that is not common in most European destinations. As for local culture, Romanian cuisine here is simple but comforting. Beyond sarm and malaga, you'll also find grilled meats, soups like siorba, and pastries are often homemade rather than industrial. Eating locally is not just cheaper, it also gives a more authentic understanding of daily life. Regarding social atmosphere, many travelers notice that people in Brashov are generally reserved at first, but polite and helpful once contact is established. It is not a loud or overly expressive culture in public spaces, which contributes to the calm feeling of the city. Another often discussed topic among visitors is appearance and social life. Brashov, like many cities in Eastern Europe, has a strong presence of young people in public spaces, especially in summer around cafes in the Old Town. However, it is important to keep this observation neutral. It is simply a social and demographic reality of a student-friendly and tourist-oriented city, not a defining characteristic of the place. Returning to the Dracula story, its global success mainly comes from the novel Dracula, which transformed a regional figure into an international icon. Today, the legend is part of the identity of Transylvania. Even if the reality is more grounded, some tours even allow night visits to Bran Castle. The experience feels very different after sunset, quieter, less crowded, and more immersive. In the end, Brashav is not just about legends. It's a city where you can combine history, nature, daily comfort, and a relatively low cost of living in one place. It also shows how some destinations remain underrated simply because they are not heavily promoted. If you want to discover more places like this, countries that are still under the radar, check the next videos on the channel, subscribe, and tell me in the comments where I should go next.